again to endure this this second round of the of my presence here, my very virtual presence, which is strange, I have to say, because I never did anything like this. You know, really online, you can't really have a direct contact with, you know, feel the presence of people. It just becomes a little bit virtual and you know, lacking the physical world. But I guess that's how it is. You know, when last January I was freaking out that we should all close all the borders because the Spanish flu is coming, and people were laughing at me. And now obviously the world has changed quite a bit, and you know, not only the paranoid filmmaker, but for everybody in a way. So I just wanted to say a few words before we enter the realm of the questions and answers. Maybe that will be more you know, more personal in a way. But what I wanted to say, and I know there are some film students here and some who are not film students, but in fact is to come back a little bit to the initial desire for me to make films, just to say a few words about that. So I was born in Hungary in 1977, and it was still communism. It wasn't a very merry time, I guess, for us. But I grew up partly on movie sets because my father is a film director and theater director in Hungary, and then my parents divorced, and I went to with my mother to Paris. I grew up actually in Paris, and I came in contact with another world, and it was I guess a long path in a way to find out if I had anything to say about, you know, about the world that would be relevant and be told in images. And what I found out during the years of learning by myself, I studied political science and, you know, international relations, and I did not study film at first, and I had more contact with history books than anything else, and I found out that, you know, to become a filmmaker, I guess you have to know some things about the, you know, the plight of humans in a way, the long story of suffering of humanity, and in a way to learn something about the world. And I guess that's something that film schools do not teach you. I guess it's the openness to the world and the curiosity to the world, curiosity about the world that has to be somewhere in your mind, I guess, to pursue. And it's I guess there's something, well, it's a little bit of a hopeless path, because it's I wouldn't advise anybody to start as a filmmaker, I guess, because it's extremely painful. Because if you're satisfied with yourself, then I would argue that you're in a world of shit. But if you're not satisfied, then it doesn't mean that you're good. So it's a little bit of a, you know, hell in a very psychological sense, in which you have to come to terms with your own demons, which is of course also the path of each human who asks questions about their existence, you know, in a way. So I wouldn't go too much into the philosophy of it, but it was certainly quite a rocky start. I wanted to make films in spite of my in my studies, and I wanted to learn the trade. I became as assistant director, and I started making I started dreaming about films and watching films before making them. And the real question that I asked myself very early on was, do I have a voice? Do I have a style or anything like this? And these seem to be like superficial questions, but there's something more to it, I guess. It's the issue of, if you are if it's the issue of imagery, and I think this has I already talked about it yesterday in the other event, but I think it's very central. It's the filmmaking, image making, I would say image filmmaking, or being in a media or communicating with imagery is something that's really treacherous. It's a double-edged sword. If you're capable of easy expression, well, it's probably a good thing. But then, how do you keep in your mind some kind of responsibility, or of how your images will touch other subjective beings? And I think that's a really tricky question, because you have to be, each image in a way is a moral question. It's not only where you put the camera, but how you go through the process of creating something that can be meaningful for other people. And I would say that we experience over the course of the last 30 years a sort of shift towards the digital and immaterial world of imagery, which created a sort of perfect storm in which we forget about the viewer, we forget about the responsibility we have as filmmakers, and as the ones who communicate images. And we start second guessing. We start inflating the number of elements, and the number of visual tricks, and the number of superficial hooks, and the number of all kinds of I would say easy tricks because there has been a sort of shift toward not the individual experience of films, but or imagery, but the industrial standardized version of it. So in a way, I'm talking about television, but not only television. It was reinforced by the internet. It's never been so easy to create images, and yet it seems that images are harder and harder to find. Images, meaning meaningful images. And I think that really is at the center of a sort of civilizational issue, in which everything becomes volatile and virtual. A world in which there's no part of the human subjective experience when it comes to the films that we experience. I'll give you an example. When we shoot a film, and in the good old days, it was shot on film. It's a physical support. In the physical material world, it involves chemistry. It involves the physics. It involves optics. It involves a filmmaker who has to make decisions, and the decision making, because you have to make decisions. Otherwise, you have to have a plan. It's not enough to machine gun the entire set just to create more and more images. This has shifted to a world in which technology allows us to take the to overtake and to be used instead of our brains. So as filmmakers, we give rise to an inflation of shots, an inflation of facts, and it seems that the audience is less and less involved. Why is it that they are less and less involved? It seems to me that they are less and less involved because it's not believable. We're not talking about the real world. We're talking about something that's immaterial, and we're talking about something that's that has no real vision behind. Because if you want to be a filmmaker, you have to make decisions that will be in the singular universe. It will not be necessarily a crowd pleasing thing. It will be a sort of either a visionary or at least something that's closer to novelty than the standardized form of expression. So traditionally, cinema was an art form that really valued at its core the adventurous, risk-taking attitudes that were based on decision-making. And we have replaced that with standardized television-compatible imagery that's interchangeable. So if you watch today's films, it might come from all over the world, but they all look the same. It's sort of the standardized grammar cinema that has been reduced to very simple tricks, I would say, and will look more and more the same, which is strange because you would think that with progress you would end up with more and more choices and more and more versions of singularities. Instead, we're looking at more and more at a standardized form of world cinema that is not going through the subjective experience of the viewer. And why is it that? It's because if you don't present the viewer with something singular, a singular vision of the world, then you have no real chance at attaining the viewer's inner core of questions and mystery and magic, the propension for magic and the willingness to be amazed. And this lack of desire that we have achieved during the last 30 years, and that in a way killed the form of cinema that we used to have, I think it's of civilizational importance, and it has many ramifications. So I will not talk more because I could talk about it for 2 hours and I will not do it, but I just wanted to just give you a full first impulse of what my difficulties have been as a filmmaker, what the world has shifted to in my view, and really the challenges for today's filmmakers and today's viewers, and it's echoes the echoes of this into civilization. I rest my case.
Great, Laszlo. Thank you very, very much. I think I'm going to hand over to you now. We have a first question, and I hope that this will inspire further questions. Don't get me wrong, I could grill Laszlo all night, and we had a very exciting after Q&A session yesterday where we sort of talked more. So it's not for lack of anything that I would like to ask him, or I know my colleagues at the Center for Jewish Studies would like to ask him, but that we intend the session really to be mainly for you.